Can you hear me? Kempo Shentong has got very fat. He's probably a little bit afraid now they've been talking about the Rangtong view today. Especially everyone who likes the Shentong view. And Kempo Shentong doesn't look so happy.
As I
was saying before, so here in this passage, when we're speaking about the path of the lesser individual, and the previous verse where we're talking about the going for refuge, they have a really strong connection, a very profound connection. So basically, from ancient times until today, most people who have said that they're Buddhist will say with their mouths, the three jewels know all joys and sorrows, there's no place to place hopes in, and I go for refuge. But when it comes to the actual meaning, there are few who understand what it actually means to say the three jewels. When you say like the jewel of the Buddha, it means someone who thinks only about the other sentient beings' welfare, and who, in order to benefit other sentient beings, has given up all the faults, and they have accomplished all the qualities that there are. That is the type of individual we call a Buddha. And so, therefore, that sort of a Buddha could only say the straightforward truth to others. And there's no way at all they could tell a lie. So now, what is it that the Buddha taught, if we talk about it like straightforwardly, honestly? Is that everything that is by nature, karma and afflictions, will deceive you and harm you. And if we can't accumulate the antidotes to karma and afflictions, that is virtue, that'll benefit us. In brief, he taught the presentation of karmic cause and result. But we don't really believe from the bottom of our heart that this teaching of the Buddha is true. We say we go for refuge to the Buddha, but we don't believe it from our hearts. We don't believe from our hearts, but in external appearance, we pretend to be Buddhist, and we pretend that we know refuge, but in actual practice, we take it as a truth that all the results of happiness depend upon subduing empties and nurturing friends. So by subduing and nurturing friends, we're able to bring ourselves happiness and avoid suffering. That is what we think is what's true. We don't even need to speak about all sentient beings. Even Buddhists don't even get along with each other. And there's some we will help and some we won't associate with. And in addition to that, we harm as much as we can. In particular, we monastics, monks and nuns, what we do is, our fault is, as we say, this is my school, that's their school. And we have the sectarian views and divide into factions. And we say that the view, meditation, and conduct of other philosophical schools are wrong. They're bad. We said that they're completely mistaken. We say the only ones who are not mistaken are us. When the lamas or the other people who hold another philosophical tradition do something that's even slightly unsimilar, then in the short term, And we try as much as we can to say everywhere, to broadcast everywhere to as many friends and as people as we can that they've done this horrible thing. We consider people who harm other schools as much as they can, who support their own schools as much as they can, to people who are loyal to the teachings, to people who serve the teachings, who have pure intentions. So we praise them, heap a mountain of praise on them. In brief, we spend our day and night busy with the intentions and actions of obliterating the lives of those who are not on our own side, and destroying all the possessions and resources. This is all we think about. This is all that occupies in our mind. And then we get busy with it. And that uses up our entire human lives. And in order to accomplish those purposes, what we do is we take whatever worldly god or nog or spirit is the most cruel and vicious and is the most evil inside as our main refuge. And we say, you are the most compassionate, and we invoke their activity. So instead of the gurus and the three jewels, we choose to place our hopes in powerful people and wealthy sponsors. We say that instead of looking to the three jewels and the gurus, we look for the wealthy sponsors. We look for powerful people. And in order for just a little bit of luck or faith to go slightly in our favor, we place our hopes in some worldly god and we'll make any oblation or propitiate them in any way we can. We don't entrust ourselves to the three jewels. We have no hopes to do so. So in our mouth, we say we go for refuge to the three jewels, but in deep inside, we go for refuge to the ghosts, gods, and humans with arrogance and deceitful intentions. But what we say still is we still say, oh, I'm Buddhist, I go for refuge to the Buddha, I go for refuge to the Dharma, I go for refuge to the Sangha. That's we sit there doing this. And so this is how we've done things from ancient times until the present. So what did Mikyo Dorje himself do? No matter what action he did, whether major or minor, Mikyo Dorje only devoted himself wholeheartedly, entirely to the gurus and the three jewels. He never did any of the divinations or shamanism or gathering wealth or so forth, astrology. If they were the parts of those that are, if they were in accordance with Dharmic teachings, he would do a little bit of them, but not those parts that contradict the teachings of the teachings. And also, when anything that harmed him, harmed Mikyo Dorje himself, he said he wouldn't blame other people saying it's their action or what they've done. Instead, he would say that this only happened because it was a previous karma. It's all the result of past actions. And so he recognized that there was solely the result of past actions. And he recognized this and did what he... And so he developed some understanding and confidence that this is because of karmic result. And then the pleasant results that occur are the kindness of the source of the jewels and the gurus and the three jewels. And so for this reason, he remembered that he said that it was certain that everything good that happens because of the guru and the three jewels, and so he never had anything, never thought about anything else, and this is what he always thought about. And so this is said, other than supplicating the three jewels fervently, we shouldn't place hopes in any other refuge or entrust ourselves or place our hopes in anyone else. Now, when we talk about praying fervently to the three jewels, the understanding that Mikyo Dorje had of this is that our actions of body, speech, and mind must not contradict the teachings of the Buddhas and the Gurus and the three jewels. In order to do this, and we have to have good behavior with the body, speech, and mind. Often we think of it as like we're having some sort of a sad expression and that we're doing things external with body, speech, and mind. But that is not how we should understand praying. That is not what we should understand praying fervently to mean. Now, there was a time when Mika Dorje had many recurrent illnesses, and during that time, what Mika Dorje did, what he probably said himself was, "Oh, what bad action did I do that such an illness as this has to occur?" And so when he said that, there was a Lama named Ayya Lama. Ayya Lama, this Lama. What he said to him, "Your Holiness is a Buddha. You're a Nirmanakaya of a Buddha, so please don't say that. If you speak like that, then something's going to happen to us. And so please don't complain like that," he said. And so Mika Dorje said to him, "Lama, there is no other truth than karmic cause and effect. In this world, there's no truth other than karmic cause and effect. So if I hadn't accumulated bad actions in the past, how could this happen? So what are you saying?" This is what Mika Dorje said. And also one time, he was at Tsari Tashijong. So there's a Tashijong that's in the region of Tsari. When he went to this place, he felt a bit unwell. And when he was unwell, the reason why I have to feel so unwell physically is because of eating the food offered in faith in the kingdom. And because you've eaten so much food offered by all the people from all the different regions of Tenma. It's basically because of eating food that was given as offerings. And so no matter whatever illness or misfortune occurred, he said that all the blame for all of it came down to himself. So many people, when we think about other people, when we think about people who is to blame for problems, we think that it's always someone else. Especially in a free country, we always thinking that it's the president did this, the ministers did this, if we talk about it on a high level, we say it's the president, or think about if it's the local leaders. But we're always looking for someone outside to blame. However, but in the actual situation, there are quite a few that do come from outer people, but there are quite a few that happen because we do not follow through on our actions, or because we make mistakes. But we don't recognize that. Yeah, but we always look to see if we can find someone who we can blame, someone we can point out and say, this is the one to blame. And so for that reason, the Kagyu Master of the past said, drive all blames into one. So you have to point your finger at yourself. Whatever faults you have you need to bring out whatever faults you have. That is the most important thing. If you're not able to recognize your own faults, then no matter how much you complain about other people, you're never going to prove yourself. For example, if you have an illness, that illness is in your own body. And if you cannot reveal what that illness is, no matter how much you say, you can't say, oh, the doctor didn't help, the medicine helped. It doesn't help, right? So that's the way of thinking about it. Likewise, Mika Dorje himself said, whenever he had any and received any great to ill or wealth or acclaim, what he would say is, this didn't happen because I have such great compassion or such power. It's not that I know what I'm doing. It has happened only because of the kindness of glorious Dusum Khyentse and his disciples. That is why we have full stomachs and have become famous. For example, because of the kindness of the protector Padma, all of the holders of the Dharma lineage and the Telpa monastery, his family lineage and servants and followers received so much worldly wealth and bounty. So it is the same. So if the good things occurred, then it is always others' kindness. It's not thinking, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm great. That's not how we should think of it. Likewise, when undesirable things happen to such as followers, such as the students in monasteries and so forth, such as being attacked by other people or losing money and possessions or being falsely accused, you would say, this is the nature that this is of things that this has occurred. It's the nature of karmic cause and effect. It was preceded by a cause. And so since we don't act according to the Dharma, then the Dharma practitioners will punish us. So look at this. And that's what he would say. He would never say, yes, it is impossible that could happen, but how is it that it happened? What occurred? He never thought about it this way or spoke in this way either. In brief, so no matter what misfortune happened to his own side, that is, the people who his own followers, in a worldly way, his students would never see him worrying about thinking what went wrong. Likewise, with the attendants who were around the Mikyo Dorje, when they had any misfortune or any really inauspicious event in this or auspicious event occur, he'd say, "Now that is good. Let everything what happens be." And so they'd immediately feel really be very carefree and comfortable. So they go to Mikyo Dorje with they'd have such great worries, and they go to see Mikyo Dorje. When you tell them about the suffering, the Mikyo Dorje said, "Oh, it's no problem. It's good. No matter whatever happens, just be as it is." And immediately people feel comfortable. And all the previous discomfort just becomes really, really pleasant and comfortable. So even the students, the way Mikyo Dorje spoke and the way his example and how he spoke, when they remembered that, his students would immediately, all of their sufferings and sorrows would be relieved. So in brief, Mikyo Dorje himself had such great confidence in the gurus and the three jewels. And because of the interdependence of that, then everyone else who placed their hopes in him and asked him for protection also had few fears and little suffering. They also naturally gained happiness and bounty. They naturally had great trust in and longing for the three jewels. And not only that, often it would happen that people would pray to Mikyo Dorje, recite his name, and then he would appear in their dreams and they'd be like liberated from illness or in suffering or liberated from dun spirits or obstructors. Also, there are people whom the doctors would say that they're going to certainly die. It's definite they're going to die. And someone else would carry them on their back to see Mikyo Dorje to receive blessings. And the moment that they met him, they would immediately perk up. They'd have like a really strong feeling. And because of this, all the illness would just naturally go away. And when they leave, they would be able to go walking on their own 2 feet. Also, some students, when they would get sick, they would speak then at the daybreak, when they were sick, they'd go to sleep, and at night they'd dream at daybreak that they felt like his foot on the top of their mouth, on the top of his head, and they had this feeling, it was like a feel like of warmth on the top of their head, and they'd feel pleasure and comfort in their body and mind. And then when they woke up, the warmth was still would not have left the top of their head, and they would be naturally cured of their illness. And so these things happen many times. So now first Mikado stayed in Kham, and then he went to Kongpo. And when he got to, from the time that he arrived in Kongpo, the crops in Kongpo would be good, and there would be no danger of illness or famine nearby where he was staying. And so all of the provisions and necessities like tea and clothing and fabric would naturally just arrive from afar. And also one year there were many earthquakes in different areas of Tibet. There were 7 earthquakes in the region of Kongpo. But everyone believed that it was because of the Mikyo Dorje, blessing of Mikyo Dorje, that there was no damage and that no one was injured in the earthquakes. Likewise, there was also a forest fire in Pomboro, which is in Kham, and the camp was in that area. And so there's a huge forest fire, and the flames reached the edge of the encampment. But then the fire went out on its own. And so this happened. The fire just died on its own. And so Mikyo Dorje was able to help these people who had faith in him and who asked him for help. And how did he do this? It wasn't because Mikyo Dorje had such a high view, or he had such a sharp focus of samadhi, or because he had the great power of mantra that he was able to repulse these or prevent these prevent these illnesses. Mikyo Dorje didn't see it like this and didn't accept that it was like that. What he himself said is that if you do not give up the 10 virtues and practice the 10 virtues, you cannot prevent the suffering and the 3 realms. There's no way that you achieve the pleasures, the God and human realms. So this is talking about it in terms of the lesser type of individual. Talk about it because I don't know if we can really call this the lesser type of individual, but we'll just say the lesser type of individual. Likewise, if you're not liberated from attachment to the desire realms and higher realms and so forth, and do not gain the bliss of jhana and absorption, you will not achieve the pleasure and bounty of the higher realms. And likewise, until you realize the faults of the samsara cause and result, the truths of suffering and urgent, and recognize that there are problems and faults, and realize that there is no self that experiences those, and then eliminate the affliction. There's no way you can say that you've eliminated the afflictions of the 9 levels and achieved liberation from the suffering of samsara. You will not cannot say you've achieved the nirvana. And if you do not recognize that all sentient beings are your parents and gather the virtue of the 6 transcendences, there's no way that you can prevent the suffering of becoming in peace and achieve the happiness of admissions. So in brief, these days, there are people who do not practice what they should do and what should not do properly, and say that and we take that the people who harm defeat their enemies and help their friends, and we say that and we understand that the people who are teaching us what to do, and we think that that everlasting protection comes from defeating enemies and helping friends. And so when they think in this way, these are like they've come under the Mara's people who think this have come under the Mara's power, and the 3 jewels will not be able to protect them, just as a shoot will not grow from the ashes of a burnt seed. So if we believe, if we do not believe the teachings of the Buddha, and we instead find some other refuge that teaches a wrong way of what teaches what we should do and should not do in a wrong way, then there's no way that the 3 jewels will be able to help us. Likewise, there's also one occasion
ane kama be loma kashe ji ya gongbo ne ya yongdu sa ne
some of the Karmapa students were coming from Kongpo. And they came to some Gelugpa monasteries at Po Chutpumpa. And so they didn't, and the monasteries didn't let them in. And so they must have harmed them in some way. And when they harmed them, then at that point, in Kongpo, in Kongpo there were a lot of the Karmapas communities and monasteries, and they all got together, and they assembled an army. And they were ready to go to war. And now the war didn't go well. And when the war didn't go, they summoned even more people, and said they were going to destroy all the Gelugpa monasteries in the region of Kongpo. And when they said that, then Mikyo Dorje said, what he said is, so that if you harm even the smallest of Gelugpa monasteries, it's the same as cutting my neck. And so he said, so they left the Gelugpa monasteries completely untouched and listened to what he said. In addition to the Kamsang teachings, there are people who are very partisan Kamachas came to him and said, it's really horrible that you said that. And saying you aren't thinking about the teachings of the benefit of the teachings. And some of them said, and so your holiness has now destroyed the teachings. And so people came to him and said this, but what Mikyo Dorje said at that time is, no matter whatever bad things people might say or bad things happen because of the situation, I'll take them upon myself. Now, the point of whether I've destroyed the teachings or not comes down to this point right now. And so in this crisis situation, we need to see, do we have the antidotes in our being, or do we have virtue in our being or not? We need to look at that ourselves. It doesn't help us to pretend that we have virtue in the antidotes normally. And so he said this very strict, very forcefully to them. And the Kamsang people said, how can he say that? The Gelugpas have really been giving us trouble, and we need to go and get revenge on them, but that didn't work out. Now it's terrible. And so many people criticized Mikyo Dorje at that time. But there was Yangzhe Drupal Kunsangwa. He was a very good Kagyu practitioner, a good retreatant. And what he said is, and probably him and a few other people who praised him, what he said was, so now now that the Karmapa has really shown the signs of a practice. He said that he used to leave handprints and footprints. Yeah, those are probably signs of accomplishment. But the real sign of accomplishment is that in response to a harm, he is actually bringing benefit. And so this is the praise that Yari Tumpa Kunsamwa gave him. So there are only a couple of people who praised Mikyo Dorje. Most people criticized him, said that he was not manly enough. So when the armies would go, then the monasteries had heard about Mikyo Dorje's thing. So later at Songkotang, when the Tse Gontang would send people to the Garchen and to go to visit the Gelugpa monastery, send people to see Mikyo Dorje and make confessions to him. And what they said was, last year we had the event of having a little bit of a war, and Mikhail Dorje and Your Holiness is very kind in protecting us, and so we now have the faith of feeling that you are Avalokiteshvara. So now we can't without if we wanted to wage war on you, we could do it, but because we think that your activities are those of Avalokiteshvara, so we're saying that you are a guru. We're saying that the deeds of this guru are the same as of Avalokiteshvara, and so for that reason we've come to make this confession to you. And one of the better lamas said at this point, and when the Guru says, "Please give me the lung of the wrathful Guru Rinpoche practice." And so you could look by this. So you could look by coming to me, the karma, to ask for Nyingma Nyingma Dharma. If you're going to ask for that, isn't that just laughable? And so for that reason, from the time of the seventh karma, during the time of the seventh Karmapa, there were some conflict between the seventh Karmapa. Now, there wasn't any reason for there to be conflict between the Gelugpa and the Kagyu. If you look at it from today, the way we say it is that they're just misunderstand it. People not thinking about it properly. And because people didn't have ways to directly resolve their response. And so the events would go around and they'd speak about them with many people, and people would misunderstand them. And because of that, there was some disharmony between the Kagyu lineage, the Karmapa, and the Gelugpas. But the main reason for there to be the misunderstandings between the Gelugpa and the Karmapa was the monastery in Lhasa. And so Mikhail Dorje just completely gave up and left it alone. And for that reason, during the time of Mikhail Dorje, there was a lot of harmony between the Kagyu and the Gelugpa tradition. In particular, in the Khampa region, the Kagyu and Gelugpa monasteries in the region of Khampa got along very well. And so this is another excellent example of his activity. But at that time, most of the constant people said had kind of very, if they had acted upon on the really hard-headed views of most of the Kagyu followers, then this would not have happened. But Mikhail Dorje acted differently. And so that is how the situation was then. And so I think that is enough for today. And as I said the other day, I said I would speak about the Great Encampment. Yeah, when I said that, but it's actually not so easy to speak about that. I looked at a few documents yesterday. And I kind of got halfway through them, but finding a real point to speak about is hard to find. Like I had this similar I had a similar talk when speaking about during the time of when speaking about Deshin Shekpa. There's so much information. There's so many documents. I think, should I speak about this? Should I speak about that? Trying to find which one I should do. But if I want to explain them all, there'd be no way that I could, and it'd also become boring. And so that is a difficulty that I had. And so the Garchen is also a similar topic, or the Great Encampment is also a similar topic, because there's so many situations related to it. So the Great Encampment was an organization that functioned at the time of many of the Karmapa. So it is also related to the eighth Karmapa. It is not just something that is related only to the life of Mikhail Dorje. And so I think I probably should be able to speak about it tomorrow, but I can't promise that 100% that I will be able to, but I'll try my best. Now we will recite the closing prayers. Oh.
Sonamandiye damje sebai tone nyebe dranaman pamchet kega naji balon jovai sibe zole joge nyodru shot tijo damje rinje shede dage sunman taye gando天主跟地作当别学人间什么别别的有逻辑，世界本主马律众人，特别的把与人的把，天生界边给我当把，本主给与人小的说。
Karma, Chizo Kendo Midre.